You ready?
You ready? Call to order. At this time, we will have the invocation and the pledge. Invocation. Dear Father in heaven, we come before you with bowed heads and our heart. We come thank you for the opportunity to come together that you bestow on us your wisdom and your knowledge, and let us be able to do what's best interest of the people. And Lord, we thank you for the opportunity, and we ask that it be done decent and in order, and we'll be careful to give you the praises. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we'd just like to thank all of you for taking out of your busy schedule to come and share with the council. We know that your very presence here signifies that you care about your community and you want what's best for it. So thank you so much for attending today. With that, we're up to the comments from the audience. We have two that have signed in, and the verbiage is there that you already understand the procedure. We'll start with Matt Raines.
Okay. Thanks for the opportunity. I'm Matt Raines. I'm a financial advisor at Edward Jones over here on 506 East Houston. I just wanted to make some comments on Agenda 7. I think it's coming up tonight. As far as priorities, that I really like the idea of a parking lot over there between the Moosehead and I guess what you would call the Dick Murkison's old office. I don't know what it is there on the corner, but I understand there might be a plan to shut down the one-way street there, redo that into a parking lot, maybe relocate the county employee parking, and I just want to voice my support for that. We have a lot of elderly clients. When they can't find a place to park on the street, it's kind of tough for them to find a spot, and if they do find a spot, opening the door with the traffic going by, having an adjacent parking lot there would be fantastic in my opinion. So I just want to voice my support for that. If you have any leftover money, we'd sure love to have public internet down there and better cell service, but we'll leave that to somebody else. So. Appreciate what y'all do. Merry Christmas.
Same to you.
Next we have Johnny Klein.
Hello everyone, I'm here for the same reason. I think it'd be absolutely wonderful, since the city does own the parking lot next to the Moosehead, to go ahead and do the improvements that was talked about 4 or 5 years ago. It's going to be an asset to our community. And also the parking lot behind Heart's Desire, if the city owns that, go ahead and take some money in order to fix that up, because as a business owner, we do need more parking. And because it is tough up on the square, because if we don't have any business, we don't have any money coming in to pay our employees or whatever. So I'd really like to see the parking lot project go forward, and it would help out everyone up on the square. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, we have the approval of minutes from the regular session, November 7, 2022. You have your minutes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
A second.
It's been moved and second. All in favor? Motion carries. At the time, we're up to the reports. Number 2, Police Department Manpower and Criminal Incident Report for October 2022.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, City Administrator. This is October 2022 Police Department Manpower and Criminal Activity Report. Have a total of 14 officers who worked 2,542 hours, responded to 472 calls for service, investigated 17 traffic accidents, made 56 arrests, issued 248 traffic citations, completed 88 reports, responded to 26 alarm calls. 21 of those were false alarms, 5 of those were not. Below you'll see a breakdown, our criminal incident report. I'll entertain any questions you may have.
Does anyone have any questions?
No.
Sir?
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you for your report. Item number 3, he's already out. Fire Department monthly activity and status report for October 2022.
Good evening, council, or mayor and council members. For the month of October, Crockett had a total of 53 calls, 30 of those being inside the city, and 23 of those being in our county response. There was no structure fires inside the city limits, and we assisted on one out in our county response as a mutual aid. There's a report in front of you that breaks our calls down. If y'all have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Any questions? Well, we're glad we're getting past the drought.
Yes, ma'am.
We can breathe a little bit. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay, brings us to item 4. And that's the one I had a note on that I just removed. Okay, consider and approve an ordinance, approving and authorizing the execution of a state infrastructure bank loan agreement, approving the levy of a tax and payment obligations thereunder, and approving certain matters related thereto.
Mayor and council, one of the long-awaited milestones in this project are here tonight. We're closing on the state infrastructure bank loan. I believe next week will be funding is what is expected on a $6 million street and water infrastructure upgrades. I have these are the streets that are in the budget, in the project list. Initially, we had funding for the first 8 of them, all the way down here: MLK, West Houston, East Bell, Cedar, North Grace, South 10th, and South 7th. Within that project budget, that was what we had estimated to be the amount of road that we could get done. Due to the lengthy process of this, in the event that there were to be additional fundings, we did include 3 other streets: Clark, East San Jacinto, and North 10th Street, which is Monroe off of North 6th and cuts through to East Houston. So that being said, recently we found out that we may be funded for a grant that we applied for in I guess it was the spring of 21. So a couple years later, we do have grant funding coming in for a large section of MLK. It's not complete yet, but we are in the final stages. It looks like we may be funded for that. So for that very reason, that we're glad that we did include some additional streets as alternates that we could add to. If we have other grant funds that could take MLK off the list, that would be great, and roll them down to additional streets. But those are the projects. Majority of these streets include water infrastructure underneath as well. We know we don't want to put a new road on top of old water lines, so that's what this will be doing, from gutters, ditches, to curbing, water lines, everything needed for a full upgrade. And tonight we do have our financial consultant here to go over some of the numbers to give everybody an update. As we're closing, we know interest rates have been a consistent climb, and so we were really fortunate to lock in good interest rates, and everything included with that. Our Mr. Ben Rosenberg will give us a quick update on that.
Thank you.
This is a very exciting time for the city, because we've been talking about streets for a long time. We became aware of this TxDOT funding program early in the spring. They do have a stipulation that has to be on their statewide program, so it can't be any street in the city. It had to be part of their street improvement program. And when we were here, I think back in April, March, May timeframe, we thought the interest rate was almost free. And we thought that was almost too good to be true, and it was, but we were able to lock in interest rates much lower than today. They also allowed us to get secure a credit rating, which the city hadn't done in a long time, which you really don't do unless you go to borrow money. And so we went through that process, and we were able to secure an A rating for the city. And I have the actual rating report in here for your review. I'm starting on page 3. And that saved us additional probably $480,000 in interest, just the difference in the rating, if you didn't have a rating versus getting the rating. So we did that process in June. They've been evaluating this since May. We submitted the application in May and got their final approval October 27th. So you'll have documents here in front of you today to approve the ordinance authorizing the city to enter in this loan agreement. And there'll be some other documents from them to sign next week, but we will actually close on the loan next week and have your funds to start the project. So I had page 3 through 7 is the actual rating report, so you can read through that. It talks all about the city, your overall credit rating, the outlook for the region, economic capabilities of the city, and a whole lot of debt factors and numbers and ratios that comes out to accredit a stable rating, which is a very good rating for the city this size. And then my job is to figure out, well, how we're going to pay for that, because that's always a big concern, borrowing money. So if you look at page 8, is the one spreadsheet like this, shows your existing debt that you have, your general obligation debt, which is secured by property taxes. And so if you look in the far left column, the 2016 refunding bonds are going to be paid off, it looks in 3 years, by 2024. So the fact that those bonds are being paid off is going to free up that payment, so this won't cost you a whole lot in taxes, and I'll show you how that works in a minute. The tax notes from 2021 is for the swimming pool. You're paying that from your INS fund. You have some excess funds in there to pay. And then the tax and revenue COs from 22 that you did earlier is being paid for water and sewer revenues, the 90,000 or so a year. So that's your existing debt. And then we look into your last history, your financial history. Going to page 10, the sheet that looks like this, and it shows the assessed valuation growth, because you're going to back this with property taxes. And you can see the last 20 years how your AV has increased from 159,000 to 334 million, 159 million to 334 million. And so that's a nice 3 to 6% growth. So we factor that in. And then you look at your tax rate over the last 5 years. Your INS tax, which is used to pay for debt, back in 2017 was 12 cents. And as your values went up a little bit, that tax went down to about 9. So you're currently 9 cents on the tax rate for debt. And so if you look at page 11, shows the new debt service, that puts everything together, shows your assessed valuation with a little bit of increase over the next couple of years. There in the middle of the column is your debt falling off, 2016 debt falling off in 2024. They're allowing you to have no principal payments for the first 2 years till that other debt falls off. And so your tax rate will go back up to about 12 cents, and then it'll fall down to about 10 going forward with the small increase in AV, and then after 5 years holding the AV constant. So that's a very conservative approach. And so I think that's very affordable for the city to do, and that mainly I'd like to take credit for that. The other debt's fallen off, but allowing for the new debt to come into place without an increase in your tax rate, maybe a penny or so until that other debt falls off. So I think it's very affordable for the city and recommend moving forward. Like I said, we've been talking about doing some street work for many years, and so this is an opportunity to take advantage of to handle this project. Page 12 shows the average impact to a homeowner for that additional tax. If your house is $50,000, it's going to cost you $16 a year. And if you had a $100,000 house, it's about $33 a year for all that street work for the city. So I think that's not asking too much of the citizens for that much street work in the city. And then page 13 shows the actual final numbers. And then starts on page 13. These are all the debt service numbers and schedules. Page 16 shows your annual payments, and that shows where you have no debt, no principal payments for the first 2 years. And then your first payment of interest will start in August of this year of $95,000. So very affordable for the city to work into that new payment. until your other debt falls off. Any questions on any of the numbers? We have bond counsel Erin Roberts from Brayswell to have the actual document signed. Any legal questions you have to ask her, she can answer, or we'll wait for you to sign at the end of the meeting.
We can go ahead and close now.
Okay.
If you want, we can go ahead and pause after the vote's taken,
Okay.
so you don't have to wait till the end of the
It's
meeting.
up,
Yeah, we'll go ahead and do it.
your agenda that long, whatever. If you want to keep going, that's fine. Any questions on the numbers?
Looks good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We need a motion.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, can we get a motion on the floor?
Okay, where's we at? 4?
4. I make a motion, we consider and approve the ordinance approving and authorizing execution of a state infrastructure bank loan agreement.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Motion carries. Everybody signs it. We'll take a few seconds. Sign some paperwork. Yes. And really, we did like it at a better rate than the way the rate was going every day.
Probably one of the biggest things we've done since I've been here. That's the biggest thing we've done since
Oh,
I've
yeah,
been here.
that's big time. That's a lot of stuff.
That's a lot of work right there.
A lot of stuff. I got more pages here to look at.
Just gotta be patient. I'm not gonna tell people if it don't happen this budget year, it's gonna happen in this budget year. Y'all have to just be patient. Like my grandma say, patience is virtue.
Appreciate you guys.
I forgot to say, I got so excited that we locked in an interest rate of 2.56% interest. The current rate's well over 4 now, so we'll be able to lock in that rate, good interest rate.
Great. Major tasks accomplished. At this time, we're up to item 5. Consider and approve updates to policies PD 5.02, PD 6.02, PD 6.03, and personnel policy and procedure manual.
Mayor and council, as y'all know, when you make big revisions and updates on things, there's other things that come up later that need to be addressed. One of them is our accrual on a holiday, on vacation leave. Our primary, our fire department, go into a 4896 schedule. The way they were accruing and having to burn their vacation, especially since we know that firefighters need to show up to, they're on duty whether it's a holiday or not. It was impacting the way that we calculated their holiday leave, to where if they do work, we can actually roll that time forward, and they can take it off as comp time, so it doesn't impact their holiday times. They can actually work it and roll their accrued comp time forward for leave at a later date. And then it also changes the way our vacation pay was accrued, was all given at the first of the year. So if you have a 1 through 5 year employee, they get 2 weeks of vacation. 5 through 10 get 3, and then 10 plus have 4 weeks. And it was all given up. It was all front loaded at the beginning of the year. So now it's accrued throughout the year, and so many hours are given each pay period, and that they accrue it. So it's a fair. You don't have somebody maybe that's a 20-year employee that retires in January that get it time that they wouldn't have gotten unless they worked the entire year. It's a fair way of accruing.
Does it start with their hire date or what? Rather
Yes.
than at the first of the year?
It starts with their hire date, and then after that, it's so much per pay period. It doesn't matter. Then when their hire date, they get their 5-year anniversary or their 10-year anniversary, the amount of hours that are allocated each pay period, that changes. And so for the 5 and 10, I have it on, so you have 3 hours for up to 5 years, 5 years and over, 4.62 hours per pay period, and then 10 years plus is 6.152. Using the same calculation, but it's accrued by the pay period and not front-loaded at the beginning of the year. These employees can also before there was one bracket as far as what time you could roll over to the next year. So if you didn't burn all your time, you didn't take all the time that was given to you that year, you could roll over. So we created 3 brackets for those employees that are affected differently, that have more time, they can roll over more time to the next year. So doesn't really change, we're not giving them any more time. It's just allows us to be able to calculate it appropriately. They still get the same holiday leave. This is specifically for firefighters that I'd mentioned earlier. It came down to where they were really only able to take, because they work 48 hours straight. Well, that's 6 full-time days for a public works employee. To take off one shift, they would burn through 6 vacation days, and so they can still work that time, but that time rolls forward, and they can take it at a later date on the schedule as workers, as a comp time off. Anyway, I sent this out. I don't know if y'all have any other questions about it, but that's kind of just a quick recap on it, of those 3 policies. Are there any questions on that?
Okay, if there are no questions, can we get a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and second, all in favor? Motion carries. Item number 6, consider and approve list of surplus items which no longer serve any useful purpose for the city to be listed on the online auctioneering service for Renee's Bates Auctioneers, Inc., or to be scrapped.
That's the big question, whether we can auction this off. If not, we have a big hunk of metal for scrapping. The motor seized up on us. We've done lots and lots of work. As you can see, even underneath it at this time, it has leaks, and we've got extended its lifespan as much as possible. But the motor seized up on it, so we had to drag it off the road about 2 months ago. And we want to add this to that same list that council approved last meeting. This is one that was missed when we put that list together. So I want to add that to the auction list.
Any questions?
I'll make a motion, we add it to the list. Yard art, maybe.
It's been moved and second.
Paperweight.
All in favor? Motion carries. Okay. Item number 7, consider and approve a preliminary project priorities for the coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds provided by the American Rescue Plan Act.
Mayor and council, we had 2 engineering firms that responded to our CDBG application. The CDBG application that this is referring to is our wastewater improvements that we submitted for behind Stokes and over to our solid waste yard. We have a sewer main interceptor that goes under the creek twice, or it goes through the creek twice. So probably about 3 to 4 foot off the bottom of the creek, and we continue to have problems there where it's trapping during a major flood event, where it'll trap branches and trees and stuff, and it's a pretty big risk that we would lose that sewer line and lose a lot of sewer. It's a 24-inch line, and then right upstream it necks down to an 18-inch. So our 24-inch sewer line necks down to 18, goes under the railroad tracks, and then goes back to a 24. That's a bad thing too. You never want to downsize a discharge line. And so we have lots of problems with that backing up. And so we were required by TCQ. This was added into our 2016 capital replacement plan, and so we're trying to get that done. So our engineers can move forward with the application. The application's already submitted, so hopefully if we're successful in the CDBG grant, we can get this project done. And our recommendation is to award the bids to KSA engineers. SPI and KSA both rated equally, except for they did not meet the category on current certification of CDBG project implementation training. They're required to submit certificates for that. Both good firms, but they did not include theirs in their packet. So we use that as a tiebreaker. And KSA actually helped draw this plan up for our TCQ project in the first place. They have a lot of knowledge on it.
I make a motion, we'll go with KSA.
Second.
It's been moved in second. All in favor? Motion carries. Item number 8. Here we- Yeah, is that in there with number 7? The priority list?
I apologize.
Yeah,
Well,
that was the only thing that had to be voted on.
okay. So, what item did you?
That was 7, it was under.
What exactly was we doing on 7?
Did they combine them?
I'm sorry, when I clicked on this, it put me down at the wrong list.
Yeah, we were still under 7.
Okay. Okay, so this one's, 7's not included in this. I was supposed to click on this.
There's yours.
I apologize. Y'all didn't want to stop me anytime during my reading of that. So if I don't have to explain that again when we get to that agenda item. All right. Council, we have ARPA funds that were given to cities across the U.S. Anyone that applied for it received them, as long as they met the criteria and submitted the application. Our funding amount was $1.585. 240. So we got a little over $1.5 million in ARPA funds. Since then, council has designated a few items towards that, out of that funding. One being the police ticket writer laptops and printers that council approved a little over a year ago. We purchased an animal shelter and a motor grader. And then we committed funds for our EDA, to finish up our EDA water line and South 5th Street improvements. So we committed this $265. That has not been expended yet out of that, but it is committed to it. So that means that we still have funding left on the table, and roughly $900,000. The needs are great. We know that there's lots of priorities, and if you ask any department in the city, there's going to be priorities. You know, everybody has needs. Some of these needs can be funded by other methods. These are not, if it doesn't get funded here, it's not going to happen. But this is a pot of money that we'll likely never see again. And, you know, hopefully that our federal government doesn't choose to dish out money like this in the future, but if we have it, we need to spend it. We have until 2025 to spend these funds. In talking to our staff and talking to council members, these are some of the items that were brought up that they saw fit to try to see if we could get it funded. We know that not all of these cannot be funded. We have a wastewater plant sludge. Our north plant, our south plant, we were able to clean out about 3 years ago because it's small enough. We can reroute our wastewater treatment plant to the north plant and take it offline to be able to clean it. Our north plant, it's being at 2 million gallons per day. there's no way that we can take it offline. Our south plant is only 500,000 gallons, so it's a quarter the size. So we can't reroute it and clean it out ourselves, drain it and take all the sludge out. We are looking at anywhere around $100,000 to $200,000. We've gotten bids upwards of $200,000, but depending on the method that we use, we feel like we can do it for about 110 using where they dredge off the bottom while the plant is still active. They're estimating 5 to 8 feet of basically sand and grit in the bottom of these aeration basins. And so we're very ineffective. We're basically treating a few feet at the top that is actually wastewater that we can treat. So our 2 million gallon plant is at best a 500,000 gallon plant. And it is throwing us into TCQ
As a compliance.
mandates that we have to comply. And this is a plausible and very good way to fund it. The plant digester, it's essentially the same. It has essentially the same problem. It's a 15-foot basin that sits above ground, 15 feet in the air, and the amount of grit and sand that had built up in it broke off the weirs and the mixer that would keep those solids suspended. Those are all broken off. The motor is still good, and it can be redone, but we need to dredge that out, pull all those solids out, and put a new mixer in to get it back online. Right now, we're using another method that is very temporary in nature. We do need our digester. City Hall, we need a roof. We're beginning to have decking that's popping up at the seams. Shows some degree of probably water penetration through the shingles. We're losing lots of rock off the shingle tabs, and we're confident that our gutters are undersized. We need bigger gutters. We have 5-inch gutters for the size of this building. We need at least 6 or 7-inch gutters to be able to handle the load.
How old is that roof?
I can't find how old it is. I know the building was built in '88. I don't think it's that old. I know it's not that old. These are architectural 30-year shingles, but not for as long as I've, or you. So at least 25 years. When the building was built, it was built with a flat roof. So a few years later, they decided the flat roof was a terrible idea, and they went and did a build-up on it. And so somewhere after 88, probably between 88 and 95-ish, is when it's probably put on. Because that's about the time you came in. So we do need a roof on it. 65 is just an estimate based on the square footage and my knowledge of it, but we have not gotten bids for gutters and for that. The drum roller, y'all just approved getting rid of our last one. It was no longer usable. That was the item that y'all voted on a couple minutes ago. We found one through United Rentals. Has somewhere, there's 6 of them, between 500 and 600 hours on each one of them. 2017 models, pretty good units. That's just if we approve that amount, then if those weren't available, then we could obviously try to find another one in that range. But we were able to find some in the $30,000 range, good used units. Square Park, the parking lot off the square by Moosehead, and we also purchased a new parking lot right here behind Harsesire, right across from City Hall. Those are using some estimates when we initially applied for the downtown revitalization grant 3 years ago for that parking lot, and they said that their priorities were no longer parking like our parking lot here. They turned it down because priorities were not parking; it was sidewalks and ADA requirements. So I used estimates off of that, and that's digging down, reworking the ground, stabilizing everything with lime, and going back with asphalt and
How many
curbing.
square feet is that?
I don't know it offhand. I can get that for you. But those are just kind of based on, I did not have a quote on that one. I based
think I
that
could
quote
beat
off of
that.
across from City Hall.
Yeah.
So I can get those to you. But those are those two parking lots. If we're going to refurbish those, our welcome to Crockett signs. We've had quite a few people coming up with plans and thoughts and ideas. We have 6 major highways coming into Crockett. We currently only have 5 of them that have those old metal rusted signs that we currently have out there that look really, it would probably be better not to have any at this time if we were, instead of having those, just to be truthful. I've had estimates, just talking to some people, not really getting estimates, just to get an idea if y'all want to go with some type of a cheaper cinder block. We could go pour footer, build cinder block, and put some raised metal lettering, maybe some backlighting or some floodlights on the front. That would be a cheaper and kind of something that you see in a lot of little towns, or something a little bit nicer. We had one of our local metal fabricators that came up with a plan of fabricating something with some a little bit of 3D image and backlit with pine trees and some pine cones and just paradise in the pines, and kind of making it more of our own instead of just a run-of-the-mill sign. Obviously, we'd have to come up with something also for lighting, either put a drop for lighting, or in some places maybe put a solar pack for lighting. If y'all notice, we were able to, out of our last budget, we were able to rebuild and completely renovate our bathroom in the park, Davy Crockett Park, beside the pavilion and splash pad. The bathroom in IT Williams Park is not in bad shape as far as the structural and the walls. The roof is rotted, and the interior, it does not have lighting, and most of the fixtures are broken out, and it just needs to be done right. For the roof and repainting it and putting some lights in there, we're looking at about $22,000. Pavilion over there, so that the park there can have a pavilion as well, something that's sturdy and could stand the test of time. Would be pour a slab and have a good metal structure put up with some tables, some tables and barbecue pit or something like that. The estimate was $60,000 for a 40 by 60, which would be a pretty nice little size for get-togethers and family reunions. Downtown strategic plan and study. I know I'm not digging too deep in these, but I really feel like council and the public just needs to know what some of the things that we're aware of. We met last week for our downtown strategies is what they're called, and it's a group that comes in and will help us on our what we're excited about is they'll be able to help us on our Main Street application. If the City of Crockett is going to move forward with a Main Street application, yes or no, we need to know. We've toyed with the idea. We're about 50% through the application as it stands. But there's a lot of work that needs to be put into it, as well as a lot of commitment.
What type of individual needs to be there to run that?
A Main Street manager, someone that either has some experience in the public domain and in management, and tourism and marketing. But we don't have to hire that person until we know that we're going to get it. But we have to commit to their salary and have a full list of their budget, their training budget, what they will do, our plans. If we're going to do any kind of facade grants, we have to have a budget developed for that and a commitment for at least 3 years. I think it's a really good thing if we can afford it. I think every city that I've talked to that has the Main Street program, they don't regret it. it's helped spur their downtown travel and attracting people from out of town into a downtown. And we have all the making, so to speak, right now with our historical buildings, our location, and a lot of people that are moving into town, and we could help guide them and just jump on that bandwagon. But we need to know whether we're going to do the Main Street program or not. This group could come in and do a lot of the work for us, and even if we decided not to go with the Main Street program and make that commitment, we would still have the framework of what we'll have all the public hearings, and we'll have a strategic plan moving forward of what the City of Crockett is going to do. So I wanted to just touch on that. They're just for the planning phase and for their strategic plan, that's a $25,000. It's about a 6-month program where they come in and they hold public hearings, they size buildings, they find out all the vacant buildings and the new ones. Farmers Market Pavilion, we've talked about that. We have a few donations already towards that. We have a lot of traffic over there with our food park currently. If we were to expand on that to help attract and bring in more people downtown, adding some more electrical hookups and doing a pavilion out there where we could hold special events and food market.
How long were they supposed to stay there, those trailers?
They're allowed, if another person, there's a rotational basis, a policy for, if we had more, right now we only have 3 hookups. So if we had the 4th person that says, hey, I want to use it as well, we would rotate them out. At this time, they're only required to move it out, I think, once a month for us to be able to kind of clean it up and stuff. They're doing really good. If it was an issue, we could have them move out sooner, more often, to where we could do better cleanup and things like that. But they're allowed to sign up to 4 days in a row. So if another one came in, they could come in and sign up for another 4 days and rotate the previous one out. But we have lots of people asking about a place that every weekend or on a set schedule you would have a farmer's market, and people could bring in their cottage goods and vegetables and things like that. I think it would be a good asset to our downtown, and a downtown visitor center. Lots of talk on that. Just based on square footage, it would be a basic construction, but something that would be nice and classy. About 1,000 square feet, 800 to 1,000 square feet for a visitor center, a bathroom, a little bathroom space downtown, which would be good for the public. The fire department has requested 4 sets of bunker gear. They're also needing bay heaters. They're old heaters. Some of them have been going out since the building was built, and they need bay heaters. Concrete for the fire station. I'd invite y'all just to go over that fire station was not built for 25 and 30 ton trucks. Our biggest one being over 60,000 pounds. The concrete's crumbling and it's not getting better. Our footers are strong. It's good construction. The construction of the fire station, I don't believe is an issue, but it's just that middle slab is just completely spalling and falling apart. That would be include us going there and busting all the concrete out and removing it with our skid steer and jackhammers, and then having somebody come in and dowel into the footers and build a new slab. Commercial. A police Tahoe, the police department requested that be looked at to replace their oldest Tahoe. We do have some Tahoes that are aging, 16s and 17s that are over 100,000 miles. So it'd be good to stay on track and not get caught with lots of old vehicles once again. And then one of the council members just requested that we also look at refurbishing the pavilion in the Davy Crockett Park. It's got rust spots popping up and the paint's peeling. That was an estimate for us to go in and sandblast it and paint it, but I haven't really researched that or had anybody look at that. There were a few other ones that I had on this list. These do qualify for other grants and loan programs. They're not, if we don't fund it through this, it's not that they're not going to get done, but it does not mean that they're not pressing as well. So the other ones, getting those existing infrastructure that I mentioned, the cleaning out the clarifier, the digester, and the aeration basin, those are priorities. Those need to be done. These
How
are
much
things
of
we need
that
to
is
look at
just
soon.
general maintenance that's supposed to be done all the time?
Deferred maintenance is what our issue is. For years and years, we never would allocate money to, like the digester, for instance, the pump that drains, that pulls that digester down. We've been using an outside pump, and it allows all those solids so we're not using the way the system was designed. We were using a temporary pump and not using like it was designed. Well, those solids set up on us, and now it's concrete down at the bottom of that. Those solids just set up to where we can't pull them out. So it's things like we have not in years past allocated so much money for asset replacement and keeping things maintained. We would try to limp along, and it's and a lot of it since we've been here, those have been addressed, but these are a couple kind of remaining items that still need to be addressed. I know that was lengthy, but those were just, and that's kind of why I need council involved on this. And if there was some of these that I think, to make it simple, because we could spend a lot of time here tonight, I think to make it simple, if there's any of these that council can tell me tonight definitively, you know what, we do not need to spend money on that right now. If you feel confident about that and I can remove it, then that would be helpful. If not, if you say, I just really want to look at this a little bit more, any of these that we were to fund and bring over, I mean, I can check my bottom line here, how we're, how we're doing.
It's pretty much like you were discussed earlier. As a counselor, just look at them, and I thought maybe if you just could identify your 6 priorities and and then work back from that and see if any of them overlap. Rather than, it's hard. That's a lot to digest at one point.
So if you wanted to tell me what your priorities were, I can also add those in there. Or if council says, let's put a review committee together. So we're at 1.4 million. We have another 120,000.
Because
that's just to give you an idea of some things that could be funded, and some things that we need to look at other sources of funding.
Well, priority is the wastewater plant and the north wastewater plant. We got to do that, period. It's not going to get no better if
Okay.
we don't do that.
Yeah.
What are some other? And I'm just using your numbers right here. You tell me what your priorities are.
My priority is the parking lot.
Which one?
I think the Moosehead one's number one.
Is
I
that
don't think it's gonna be no $300,000 either.
Well, it just
One
depends
right
on what
next
you
to
want done.
Yeah.
That's another thing. A lot of these
What
things.
do you need to do there?
Cause don't you gotta close off that one-way street?
So a lot of that depends on what does council want to do. There's a lot of little shorter term things. If y'all want to, we can put a sidewalk across the head of it, and that's initially what the plans were, is to sidewalk the whole entrance to where there's not any entrances and exits off the square. That's just more traffic and more pedestrian. That's just asking for more trouble. Have the entrance and exit off of here, completely removing the road and rebuilding that concrete all the way across, having a full from one side to the other. There's one business that has an exit.
You're talking about taking 5th Street out.
Taking 5th Street out, having your commercial loading zone up at the head, up on the square to unload for East Houston and for Moosehead and Bellas. They could have an unloading dock up at the top, and just completely removing that street adds about probably 10 to 12 additional spaces just there by not having a street, your traffic there. So some of that can be done. We could put up, some temporary barricades and just close the road off, and, so where do you want to go from that, in that spectrum? Yes, it can be done for considerably cheaper, but if you want it to, we do have some structural issues on the bottom side where.
Well, that curbing and stuff too, has to be removed,
So if we remove it and go back with asphalt and try to patch it up ourselves versus going in and having the whole thing done nicely, those are all items that council can.
Yeah. I still think that it's a lot to digest at this point in terms of who's, because everybody's not.
Well, we got, you said we got to 2025,
Yeah, I was just saying if you could just,
so I would-
collect a list for priorities based on what the council want, and then see where they stand and whether they overlap or to what extent, and then go back, and as you said, you're actually gonna have to have a subcommittee, as you mentioned, to review in depth of what they're gonna be, and then bring them back to present.
well,
Because just looking at, you said one, and then I was just thinking, well, that one,
Yeah,
Would
what
be-
We know for sure that the wastewater plants have to be done.
yeah, the
That's a-
mandatory
that's a- That's a
ones.
mandatory, that has to be done.
I guess my biggest question is how do they get in that bad a shape, I mean,
Years of neglect. This is crazy.
that's the word I'm looking for.
It has
is neglect.
it's
Lots
not a
of,
one-year thing.
I'd like to talk to the new guy. What's his name? The guy that's over all what's his name?
The guy that we expect to fix all
To
of our.
fix everything.
Yeah.
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 So we have, like I say, all the ones that we can blame, they're no longer working for us.
I know,
Yeah.
I know.
And
Yeah.
so,
But I want to
We
ask
starting
him,
anew, we
I want
starting
to ask
fresh.
him how he can keep it
he's the one that's coming up
keep
with
it
this.
done, keep it fixed, rather than it just getting bad again like this,
Oh, right, so right now, it's so much detail, and John did go into a lengthy detail amount about it, just to let us know what we're up against. So, I just think that it would be a better thing to recommend that we go home and generate a list of what we think is most important.
I'll
Maybe
give you a
just-
copy, I give you a
yeah.
copy of this, and you
Already
check
got
mark
mine.
you've already done
Yeah.
yours.
Yeah, I already got mine.
Okay, well, you can,
And each one of y'all check mark the ones that you definitely want to see funded, and if you can put a priority list, and then I have some data to work with.
and then we can come back and,
Is that good with council?
because that's a lot of stuff.
Yep.
When I heard it explained, I changed a couple of my priorities, but, so, at this point, we're on the right item now. Can we just do we need to vote or make a recommendation, or?
We can make a motion just to
Table it.
To table it.
And during that tabling period, we'll be submitting information to John based on this list,
The next meeting.
Sounds good?
what our priorities are. Okay, so, motion on the floor.
I make a motion, we table it till the next meeting.
A second.
With the intent that we'll bring a list back, right?
I make a motion, we table it till the next meeting with the intent to bring a list back.
Yes, ma'am.
All in favor? Motion carries. Okay. Item number 8, consider and approve increasing budget for forensic audit of Crockett Economic Industrial Development Corporation.
Mayor and council, I've given you the letter from our forensic auditors. In short, they're requesting that the budget be increased. They in their proposal, and one of our council members, I was likening it to, they gave us a proposal based on a sight unseen in their best ability to gather information. But once they look at the project, they've already committed significant amount of resources. Most of the items that they're able to glean are scanned and or copies, and they're not original digital copies. And so they're having to manually read each document and do data input in order to form their report. They feel like they're closing on. Their goal is to submit a report before Christmas, sometime this month. And so they're trying to finish up on that, but they're asking because they need to commit more resources to finalize their report and to do their due diligence on it. So they're requesting that the ceiling was 100, so their proposal was 75,000 to 100,000, and they're requesting an increase between 115 to 125 to increase that ceiling to up to 125. Off of our website, as it says in this letter, the last 5 years, the EDC's annual budget was 400,000, 423, 588, 701, and 888. So they average those out. But going prior years, like just in 2016, it was 1.6. In 2014 was 2.3 million. So the data that they actually had and that they, proposed their audit on was based on a different set of numbers. So they're asking some more time.
I think the way I understood it is that what they're actually trying to do, if you want to really make the comparison, you're going to have to go back to those years, and those extra years weren't kept as digital as they should have been. And so if you want to, because we wanted to span, the current years are a lot more accessible, but prior to that, it wasn't in digit form, functional format, so they're having to do double work. So we want a balanced look at the years now and prior years. We're gonna have to go a little bit farther, but I think that was the understanding even before we started, that the further you go back, the more data, the harder the data is to accumulate, and requires different things to that, in that instance.
Oh, of course then. In raising the budget, it's not good for either one, but nevertheless, with economic development, for us raising the budget, I know that there are some things that they have on the table that they're gonna pay, so if that is raised on them, who's gonna come back and pay what needs to be paid when the other business is trying to come into the city?
Okay, bottom line, what's asked is still gonna be split.
Mhm.
It's not gonna interfere, from the very beginning, it was gonna be split
Okay.
in the budget, so
Okay.
it's not enough to, if
Okay.
it's not enough to make them go into a
But
major.
I'm just gonna ask it, but
Yeah, sure.
the city's the only one that's on the contract that signed, not economic development.
It was approved that, in the meeting, that it was gonna be a shared cost. From the very beginning, it was covered that way, and it was voted on. But I think that the more you can get to make it balanced, so you can see what happened year by year, the better we'll be able to make we'll get an understanding of where, if it's anything that is not balanced, because it's not right if you inherit the problem to continue with it if you can't identify what it was. So this will give you a better balance, and I think that's what everybody was looking for, to see if it's some practices that have existed long before. I think that was the extent of it going further back.
So there's not a certain amount for the city or either one right now, right?
I'm sorry.
There's not a certain amount right now, is
The
it?
only amount that we've been invoiced for was 49,000.
Okay.
I'll make a motion, we increase the
I'll second.
125. The ceiling to 125.
Yes, sir.
It's been moved in second. All in favor? Motion carries. Okay, we're up. Item number 9, consider and approve a resolution of the City Council of the City of Crockett selecting an engineer, that's the one we did, Okay, we've already approved it.
We haven't approved it yet, but I did read.
Oh, I mean, it was
in
on the-
depth.
We did approve it.
You
Yeah.
gotta reapprove.
We did approve it.
Oh, we did approve it?
Yeah.
And you voted.
I was flustered enough, I didn't pay attention,
Yeah,
I'm
we
sorry.
went through that one. I was like, I didn't think that was the same one. Okay, that brings us to the end.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and second. All in favor? We are adjourned. A lot of stuff. Ooh, Lord, I need to go home and eat my dinner. Yeah, I think that, I knew that they were going to, just now, well, when you went back, because, but if you don't get a baseline,